Another migration tragedy off Libya's coast, with the UN saying at least 53 people are dead or missing from a boat capsize. Kenyan families seek answers after relatives found to be recruited into fighting in Ukraine. And the peace process for South Sudan stalls once again as Kenyan-led negotiations fail to take place. I'm Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. Welcome to Africa Live. We'll bring you the details on those stories in just a moment, but first, here's Ramanyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Angola will now be seeking to buy a minority stake in De Beers to limit exposure to diamond prices. We'll also explore why South Africa's energy regulators allowing the state-owned power utility Eskom to raise prices by around 9% for the next 2 years. The data and the details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. Chinese President Xi Jinping, also General Secretary of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee, has visited an information technology innovation park in Beijing. During the visit, he learned about IT applications and innovation and was briefed on efforts to expedite Beijing's development as an international sci-tech innovation center. President Xi Jinping also reviewed a display of sci-tech achievements and spoke with researchers and heads of sci-tech enterprises. The Xinchuang Park was launched in 2019, aiming to facilitate innovation achievement from lab to markets. The park now houses around 1,000 high-tech companies. Beijing E-Town continues to play a vital role in the development of China's robotics and intelligent manufacturing sectors. As the permanent host of the World Robot Conference, officials say the area has become a key platform for robotics, accelerating the move from research to commercialization.
Car dealerships are everywhere. But in Beijing, there's now something new, a Robot 4S store. On display are machines designed for homes, schools, factories and special operations. Instead of just watching, visitors are encouraged to interact, guided by engineers who explain how each robot works and where it fits. In the experience zone, everyday environments are recreated. Living rooms, offices and production lines allow users to test robots the way they would actually use them. Behind the showroom is where the real work happens. Here, robots are taken apart, adjusted, reprogrammed and tested, turning standard models into solutions tailored for specific needs.
This platform is designed to solve a key challenge in the robotics industry, how to move from innovation to real-world use. We connect robot developers directly with users and adapt robots so they can work in real scenarios, not just in labs.
This service is becoming increasingly important as robot applications expand beyond factories and into public spaces. After years of focused development, Beijing E-Town has grown into one of China's leading robotics hubs. More than 300 robotics and intelligent manufacturing companies are now based here, forming an industrial chain valued at over 10 billion yuan. And that ecosystem is already reaching everyday consumers. At a robot-themed restaurant in Beijing E-Town, technology comes with a table number. Robotic hosts greet guests at the entrance. Delivery robots move between tables, while others handle cleaning and waste collection. In the kitchen, robots prepare coffee, milk tea and traditional snacks. During the wait, customers can interact with entertainment robots, from performers to live robot bands.
I want to try everything here. I need to try to play chess with robots. I need to see how robot performs. I want to try coffee that was prepared by robot. It's just a place where I can feel the future right now, right today.
Bring robots into everyday spaces like restaurants makes advanced technology easier to understand. It's not just something you read about. You can actually see how robots are becoming part of daily life.
From retail and services to dining and entertainment, robots in Beijing E-Town are stepping out of the lab and into everyday life. By turning innovation into usable products, the area is offering a real-world model for how the robotics industry can grow, not just faster, but closer to people.
Jimmy Lai, the instigator of anti-China riots in Hong Kong, has been sentenced by the region's High Court to 20 years in prison. Lai was found guilty on 2 charges of conspiring to collude with external forces and 1 charge of conspiracy to publish seditious materials. Mira Liu has more.
One of Hong Kong's most high-profile and closely watched national security trials have come to a close today. Founder of the closed-down Apple Daily, Jimmy Lai, sentenced to 20 years in prison after being convicted on charges of foreign collusion and sedition. The court said that after considering Lai's serious and grave conduct, it was satisfied that a total sentence of 20 years imprisonment was appropriate. The judges spared the 78-year-old the maximum penalty of life imprisonment, but given his age, the term could still keep him behind bars for the rest of his life. Lai has been in detention for more than 5 years, while also serving his fraud sentence. Lai was convicted in December last year after a long trial that lasted a record 156 days. During that time, Lai took the witness stand for 52 days, another record. He was found guilty on 3 counts, 2 relate to conspiracy to collude with foreign forces under the national security law. Prosecutors said he conspired with others to request foreign governments impose sanctions, blockades, or other hostile actions against the Chinese mainland and Hong Kong. The 3rd count relates to conspiracy to publish seditious materials. Lai pleaded not guilty to all 3 charges. Ever since his arrest, the case has drawn international scrutiny, with some foreign rights groups and media criticizing it as upending Hong Kong's freedom of speech. The legal experts we spoke to said the Western media coverage has focused on the sedition charge because it is easier to criticize Hong Kong's courts and the government. He pointed out that the collusion charge is more serious, as it is unlawful to seek a foreign power to impose sanctions on one's own country, and described that kind of conduct as comparable to treason. Amongst Lai's 8 other co-accused, 6 former Apple Daily employees who earlier pleaded guilty were sentenced to between 6 and 10 years. 2 other activists who had testified for the prosecution were jailed for over 7 years.
In Japan, the ruling coalition led by Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's Liberal Democratic Party has won Sunday's election in a landslide. The ruling bloc gained 352 seats in the House of Representatives. That is more than the 2/3 majority needed to enact bills, even if they are rejected by the upper house. The LDP alone earned 316 seats. The main opposition party, the Centrist Reform Alliance, saw its seat count plunge to 49, down from 172 before the vote. Takaichi's decision to call a snap election in the month of February drew criticism. Heavy snowfall was reported to hamper campaigning in many regions. The UN Migration Agency says 53 people, including 2 babies, are dead or missing following a boat accident off the coast of Libya. Officials said the vessel departed from the town of Zawiya on Thursday and overturned a few kilometers up the coast the following day. 2 Nigerian women were rescued during a search and rescue operation by Libyan authorities. The UN agency said more than 1,300 migrants went missing in the central Mediterranean last year. At least 375 people have been reported dead or missing in January alone in the central Mediterranean. It warned that this is just the latest shipwreck to have happened amid severe winter weather, with many more tragedies feared and recorded. In addition, the International Organization of Migration says close to 9,000 people died on migration routes worldwide in 2024, making it the deadliest year on record. The central Mediterranean route between Libya and Tunisia in Africa and Italy in Europe is reported to be the most dangerous. In Nigeria, close to 200 people were killed by alleged terrorist attacks last week in the western state of Kwara and the northern state of Katsina. The killings came as the U.S. announced the presence of limited military personnel in the West African country. CGTN's Robert Nagila has more.
Over the last few years, Nigeria has borne the brunt of deadly attacks targeting both Muslims and Christians that have killed thousands. However, last October, U.S. President Donald Trump weighed in on the issue, claiming that Christians faced an existential threat from militants and threatened a military action. But Nigeria's government dismissed the allegations, insisting that these attacks target both Christians and Muslims. In December, reports emerged that the U.S. had been conducting surveillance flights over the country. Then, on Christmas Day, Trump announced on social media platform Truth Social that a missile strike had targeted Islamic State terrorists in northern Nigeria, who he claimed were targeting Christians. Nigeria's foreign ministry confirmed the strike had been coordinated with Nigerian authorities. On January 13th, the U.S. Africa Command announced on social media platform X that it had delivered critical military supplies to Nigeria. Then, 10 days later, on January 23rd, the U.S. Africa Command announced the establishment of a joint task force with Nigeria following a meeting with Nigerian representatives in Abuja. And just last week, the general in charge of U.S. AFRICOM announced in a briefing that the U.S. had sent a small military team with unique capabilities to Nigeria to support the country in its fight against insurgents. But will these steps yield any results? Only time will tell. Bobot Nagela, CGTN.
In Nigeria, protesters have gathered in the nation's capital, Abuja, urging the Senate to pass amendments to the electoral law a day before a key debate. On Tuesday, lawmakers will be debating legislation that would make electronic transmission of election results mandatory. The demonstrators are pushing for a transparent electoral process and particularly real-time electronic transmission of election results from polling stations to the Independent National Electoral Commission's results portal. They called on the Senate President to approve the amendment when the chamber sits on Tuesday.
What we want is an electoral process that is transparent from beginning to finish. The election must be transmitted electronically from the polling booth direct.
I'm here because of the bill. They must transmit the result immediately in polling units, so that because we need to get it right at this time.
What we are saying is just go back to the real-time transmission. We have made some progress. We want to maintain that progress. We want to ensure that whatever we are doing now will hold for the future. This is about the future of Nigerians.
Meanwhile, neighboring Mali has intensified its counter-terrorism efforts in central and northern regions, where militant groups have staged attacks against security forces and civilians in recent years. On Sunday, the army said it carried out a series of coordinated strikes that killed several dozen suspected militants during operations west of the central city of Segou. The army said the actions followed territorial surveillance conducted over the weekend. It comes as the military-led government looks to reassert control over the territories and curb the activities of armed groups. To the conflict in Sudan now, and a local pro-government group says more than 300 detainees have died in prison in the RSF-held state of North Darfur over the past 2 months. According to a statement by the Popular Resistance, the detainees succumbed to worsening health conditions amid a lack of medical care at Shala prison in El Fasher. El Fasher has been under the control of paramilitary rapid support forces since late October. The statement said the RSF is holding more than 9,000 civilians at the facility, many of whom have suffered serious injuries from shelling. It added they have been denied treatment, resulting in severe infections. The RSF have not yet responded to the accusation. Meanwhile, Sudan has announced its return to the East African Bloc, Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. This comes 2 years after suspending its membership over the invitation of the RSF leader Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo to a summit. Following a meeting with Sudan's Prime Minister last month, the bloc condemned the RSF's violations and expressed its support for Sudan's unity. IGAD has welcomed Sudan's return. A new round of peace talks aimed at ending South Sudan's political deadlock has been cancelled. This is according to officials from the Kenyan Foreign Ministry, which is mediating the so-called Tumaini initiative. The talks were set to resume today here in Nairobi and sought to produce a national consensus charter for peace and democracy to address gaps in implementing a 2018 peace agreement. Tumaini was launched in May 2024, and last month the initiative handed over a framework to guide the talks. However, the peace process continues to face setbacks. Still, Kenya's Prime Cabinet Secretary remains hopeful that the initiative will soon bear fruit.
What is important is that this is work in progress. Today, our president was briefing. He normally has an annual briefing for all diplomats in Kenya. So this was his second annual briefing. And he did make specific reference to South Sudan, where he announced to the diplomats that they had had a conversation with Salva Kiir only a day or so ago. And they do hope that this conversation will strengthen so that the peace initiative can be accelerated. And he did mention that the Tumaini initiative remains perhaps the most credible avenue for there to be lasting and inclusive peace process or processes in South Sudan. And he hopes that there's going to be more engagement as we go forward. So I would not say that it has collapsed. I think they may not have taken off at this stage. But it is absolutely important that you recognize that peace initiatives are as good as the people themselves want them to be.
Eritrea has rejected claims by Ethiopia that its forces are working with rebel groups inside Ethiopia. On Sunday, Ethiopia called on its neighbor to immediately withdraw its troops from what it describes as Ethiopian territory, accusing it of carrying out an incursion along their shared northwestern border. However, Eritrea dismissed those claims as false and fabricated, saying they are part of a hostile campaign by Addis Ababa. Eritrea has also taken issue after repeated assertions by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed that landlocked Ethiopia has a right to sea access. This has been seen by many in Eritrea, which lies on the Red Sea, as a threat of military action. Eritrea gained its independence from Ethiopia in 1993, and relations between the two have been volatile ever since. You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. Kenya's capital hosts a gathering on advancing AI for development in Africa. Egypt and Somalia have agreed to deepen security cooperation to bolster stability in the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea region. Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud held talks with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah el-Sisi at the presidential palace in Cairo on Sunday. El-Sisi said the two discussed what he called Egypt's anticipated participation in the African Union mission in Somalia. In 2024, Somalia announced that Egypt offered to deploy peacekeeping troops to the Horn of Africa nation. The deployment will help strengthen Somalia's decades-long war against violent extremism. El-Sisi also reiterated what he called Egypt's unwavering support for the unity and territorial integrity of Somalia.
I would like to reaffirm Egypt's unwavering support for the unity and territorial integrity of our brotherly nation of Somalia and our categorical rejection of any measures that undermine this unity, including the recognition of the independence of any part of its territory. This will constitute a flagrant violation of the UN Charter and the rules of international law, and a dangerous precedent that threatens the stability of the entire Horn of Africa region.
And let's turn to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, whose impact is now being felt in some African countries. In Kenya, several families say their loved ones were recruited with the promise of gainful employment, only to die on the battlefield. The Kenyan government has confirmed some deaths and says it is working diplomatic channels to secure the release of any Kenyans who are coerced into joining the conflict. CGTN's David Mbithi with that report.
The conflict in Ukraine will reach another grim milestone before this month is over. 4 years of fighting and thousands killed according to UN estimates. Now the cost of that bitter confrontation between Russia and Ukraine is being felt across continents. In the Kenyan capital Nairobi, some families say their kin were deceived into becoming mercenaries for Russia in Ukraine. They claim some were offered lucrative civilian job opportunities with large signing bonuses attached, only to find themselves in the middle of the conflict. A very angry Charles Ojiambo Mutoka says the news of his son's death only reached him this January, when Oscar was listed as deceased in August last year. To his knowledge, his son Oscar's remains rest in Rostov-on-Don in southwestern Russia.
That war does not concern us Africans at all. It doesn't, and it will never.
The anguish is shared by 38-year-old Grace Gadoni, now a single mother of 4. She learned in November that her husband Martin, who had planned to become a driver in Russia, died in combat.
I could say that if they have that humanity, they can bring my husband back so that I can bury him if he is really dead. But he is dead because even the embassy of Russia confirmed that. He just found his body.
Another Kenyan father is not in mourning, but has a cautionary tale for others. He says his son escaped from the front line with a broken arm.
So for him, though he came injured, I can say we were lucky. Not me alone, but the whole family and the friends.
Ukraine's ambassador to Kenya says they have noticed a growing number of Africans on the front line, and the spray of bullets doesn't choose its casualties.
Let's be honest and let's be fair. Ukraine is defending itself. And those people are coming to my country with the guns in their hands. And therefore, the front line is very dynamic. And often there is no time, to check the nationality or the color of the skin of people or anything like that.
Kenya's Foreign Affairs Ministry says it will intensify diplomatic engagements in coming weeks to secure the release of Kenyans who were irregularly recruited to join the conflict. Russia's defense and foreign ministries are yet to release an official statement on the matter. David Mbithi, CGTN.
A two-day meeting on artificial intelligence has opened here in the Kenyan capital, with participants drawn from across the world. Organizers say the Nairobi AI Forum seeks ways to accelerate cross-border partnerships and financing models that can allow sustainable sovereign AI infrastructure across Africa that supports inclusive human development. CGTN's Robert Nagila has the story.
Over the past year, technological advances in artificial intelligence have accelerated, driven by factors such as increased computing power. Artificial intelligence is already transforming the world. For the African continent, the challenge is how to leverage AI to create opportunity and deliver real benefits for its people. It's against this backdrop that the Nairobi AI Forum 2026, co-hosted by the governments of Kenya and Italy and the United Nations Development Programme, is taking place in Kenya's capital. The focus is on how to connect AI infrastructure to innovators, builders and governments across the continent to accelerate development.
And so how do you ensure that Africa begins not just to be a passive participant in artificial intelligence, but becomes an active builder and developer? And this is why this forum is important.
Figo says one particular challenge Africa is facing is data center capacity. The continent has 1% global data capacity, with half of it in South Africa. Other challenges include financing and sovereignty, which touch on the ability of a state or entity to develop and control AI tech.
Designing partnerships is essential if we truly want innovation to translate into inclusive and sustainable development.
Across Africa, AI is driving innovation in various sectors including health and agriculture. Experts say its full potential can be harnessed to benefit the masses.
AI is not a sector add-on. It is a systemic enabler of development outcome and social impact. Presented.
During interactive sessions, fears of job losses to AI were allayed, with keynote speakers saying new positions will be created. Instead, focus should be on training to meet the new realities in the job sector. The forum ends on Tuesday. Robert Nagila, CGTN.
And over to Tanzania now, where a key commercial and regional hub has reopened in Dar es Salaam after years of reconstruction. Speaking at a special ceremony on Sunday, President Samia Suluhu Hassan urged authorities to ensure their Kariakor market promotes the highest standards of service delivery. She stressed that traders should uphold values of efficacy, discipline and fair competition, stressing that Kariakor is a key pillar of national and regional trade. The market had been under renovation since 2021 following a fire. The refurbishment has cost the Tanzanian government close to $11 million.
I sincerely hope that this market will become one of the largest and most modern in Africa, but also the center of economic development for the people of this country. We must ensure that all products sold in this market meet international standards as before. The products sold in this market will not only be used by Tanzanians, but also by foreigners from neighboring countries. Therefore, I urge the Tanzania Bureau of Standards to ensure that the products sold in this market meet international standards so that this market can be recognized internationally.
Chad is hosting the 6th edition of the International Saharan Cultures Festival as groups from across the region come together and showcase their rich traditions and cultural heritage. Organizers say the event is more than just a series of activities. Rather, it's become a tool for promoting cohesion across Saharan people. CGTN Sophia Shumenchero has more.
For 7 days, cultures will meet and traditions come alive here in Amjara City, northern Chad. The International Festival of Saharan Cultures features a dynamic mix of artistic and competitive events, including camel and horse races, cultural parades, concerts, and tourism workshops.
The decorations you see on the horses are put there to make them beautiful. It is an important tradition for us. Without this adornment, a horse is like a person who is not dressed.
The event was officially opened on Saturday, featuring Niger as the guest of honor, alongside cultural delegations from Mali, Morocco, Mauritania, and Burkina Faso.
This festival lifts the veil that sometimes exists between Saharan cultures. This kind of event is, in a way, the true strength of all these Sahel countries and of the African continent as a whole.
Organizers say this year's edition aims to strengthen South-to-South cooperation, promote responsible cultural tourism, and preserve intangible heritage for future generations.
Another flagship activity is the development of South-South cooperation, meaning enabling Saharan countries to create an international network of local authorities that will continue to exchange and cooperate, turning this into an important economic, political and cultural driver for all the countries that share the Sahara.
He also hopes to expand the event's scale and impact.
The festival is continuing and growing, and it will one day become a major international event. At the beginning, we did face organizational difficulties, but we are refining our approach to make this festival a major cultural and tourist event in Chad.
For a region that is often fragmented by borders and conflict, the International Festival of Saharan Cultures is transforming into a bridge for collective development and mutual support. Sophia Shumenchero, CGTN.
The Chinese community in the Nigerian commercial city of Lagos have held a colorful ceremony to mark the Chinese New Year, which begins on February the 17th. The celebration, which featured a food festival, brought together government officials, members of the diplomatic corps, business leaders and members of the Chinese and Nigerian communities. Organizers also used the occasion to commemorate the 55th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Nigeria and China. CGTN's Deji Badimosi has more on the story.
The ceremony marking the Spring Festival in Lagos has been a regular feature for some years now. Once again this year, it didn't disappoint. Guests were entertained with colorful Chinese cultural performances. There was also room for Nigerian cultural displays. Amidst the performances, participants had the opportunity to munch on several complimentary Chinese cuisines. The food festival has become a very important part of the Chinese New Year celebration, and the guests here seem to be loving it.
Though I know they have different kind of segments, but this particular one that we are observing here, you have different cuisines of Chinese in Nigeria, the same taste, just like somebody that is in China. So it's just like bringing China to Nigeria in terms of their delicacies.
It's been thoroughly enjoyable. I've enjoyed myself. It's been fun. It's been a celebration of the Chinese culture in Nigeria. A celebration through food as well as interaction with people, but emphasis on the food because I love food.
Of course, the Chinese culture is one of the best in the world, and the Chinese food, I love Chinese food. So I think that what stands out for me is really the food, that you can have Chinese food in Lagos, and it's great quality. And I love so many things about Chinese food that and I can find so many of that here.
The turnout here is actually very encouraging and massive. As you can see, there are a lot of people, Nigerians here, coming to celebrate with the Chinese. Obviously, we have a working relationship already, and this will also further strengthen the relationship we have with the Chinese. So trust me, this is a win-win relationship for both the Chinese and Nigeria.
Away from the food festival, guests gathered in this hall to reflect on 55 years of diplomatic relations between China and Nigeria, and to pledge further commitments to the future.
China will remain firmly committed to expanding high-level opening up and will share development opportunities with Nigeria, with Africa, with the rest of the world. In the new year, let us stand united and work hand in hand to contribute to taking China-Nigeria relations to a new heights.
I reaffirm the commitment of the National Assembly to strengthening legislative framework and cooperation, improving bilateral framework and ensuring that our partnership are transparent, sustainable and people-oriented. We remain focused on promoting policies that enhance investment, create jobs, and support Nigeria's long-term economic transformation.
8 million.
The event concluded with a charity project where a total of 8 million naira was disbursed among 40 families, renewing the Chinese community's commitment to helping fight poverty in Nigeria as China and Nigeria continue to strengthen cooperation in the years ahead. Deji Badimosi, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, Chinese New Year activities are already in full swing in many parts of China itself. In the eastern city of Hangzhou, many are trying their hand at door figurine making, writing Spring Festival couplets, and taking photos for family portraits. In Anji, Fujian province, a local market is bustling with a wide variety of agricultural specialties and traditional festive foods. Residents are also visiting a seasonal flower exhibition nearby to select floral decorations for their homes. And in Kaifeng, one of China's ancient capitals in Henan province, a lantern festival is lighting up the night. Organizers say a corridor of heritage lanterns stands alongside colorful zodiac-themed displays, blending history with modern celebration. Let's now go to Ramanyang for a look at the latest business news. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's happening in the world of money. Angola will now be looking to buy a minority stake in De Beers to limit its exposure to diamond price volatility. And we'll explore why South Africa's energy regulators allowing the state-owned utility Eskom to raise prices by nearly 9%. Welcome back to the program. Let's start in Namibia. Authorities there say they will not recognize the purchase of offshore stakes in the Luderitz Basin, as announced last week by Total Energy and Petrobras. Now, a spokesperson for the presidency said a formal application must be submitted and then the prescribed statutory process completed before any transaction can be recognized or considered valid. The French oil major Total Energy and Brazil's Petrobras, or Petrobrasilia to use its formal name, said on Friday they'd each acquired a 42.5% stake in PEL 104. It's an exploration license offshore Namibia, as both companies are looking to develop commercial-grade oil assets in the country. Namibia's Ministry of Industries, Mines and Energy said the government was not notified of these developments as required by law, and it was told about the planned announcement of the deal only a few minutes before it was released. Total Energy and Petrobras said the transaction remained subject to approvals from the authorities in Namibia. We're still in the business of extractives. Angola is pursuing a stake of up to 30% in Anglo-American's diamond mining unit, De Beers. Now, this is a downward revision from the country that initially pursued a majority stake. The National Director of Mineral Resources told Reuters that taking a majority stake within luxury commodities was somewhat dangerous because it depends on the market. In order to de-risk that, Paulo Tagana said that the country had opted to have a portion that is more sustainable for the economy, and they found that a range of between 20 to 30% to be pretty much the sweet spot they're comfortable with. De Beers is one of the world's leading diamond mining companies. It has been put up for sale by its parent firm, Anglo-American, due to falling diamond prices and the global rise of much more affordable synthetic diamonds. Angola's bid for majority stake had set the country up for potential bidding war with its neighbour, Botswana, which owns 15% of De Beers, and it has said it is working on acquiring a majority stake in the company. South Africa's energy regulator says it has granted the state-owned power utility Eskom larger electricity price hikes for the next 2 financial years than originally planned, after admitting to having made errors in its earlier calculations. Eskom's power prices will now rise by 8.76% in April this year and 8.83% in April 2027. NERSA says that the revised tariff increases balanced Eskom's financial sustainability with customer affordability. Eskom has been mired in a financial crisis for years and partly blames this on the regulator's tariff decisions. However, it did make its first full-year profit in 8 years last year, helped by a multi-year government bailout and a sharp turnaround in the performance of its coal-fired power stations. The former monopoly still supplies most of the electricity that is used in Africa's largest economy. South Africa and the European Union are partnering to roll out a program that prepares graduates for the workforce, which will then be translated through entrepreneurship, coaching and startup incubation support. For many young South Africans, landing a job is more than just a milestone. It's a critical step towards economic independence and inclusion. But for millions, even this first step remains out of reach. Julie Shire takes up the story.
Numpumelelo Nlapu is a law degree graduate. But it has been an uphill task breaking into the industry and securing articles to qualify for the bar.
Some companies require you to have a car. Some companies require you to have work experience. And I wish I knew that, it's not going to be as easy. It's not going to be a transition that I'm going to be able to do, seamlessly, because I need those things that they require.
She sadly forms part of a grim statistics. At least 4.8 million unemployed youth reported having no previous work experience in the first 3 months of last year when she graduated. That means nearly 6 in 10 unemployed young people are still waiting for their first opportunity to enter the job market. Without experience, youth struggle to get hired. Yet without getting hired, they cannot gain experience. This cycle of exclusion continues to fuel long-term unemployment and stall skills development at a critical stage of life.
Doors that are closed make you feel like you're doing something wrong. So you end up blaming yourself. You end up feeling like you're not doing enough.
There may be soon a solution. The University of Johannesburg, in partnership with the European Union, is building an entrepreneurial ecosystem for the digital era. It is designed to train students and to equip lecturers and educators with the skills needed to bridge the gap between the campus halls and the labor market.
You know, when you have the simulation kind of projects where the students, they'll have maybe to create either a product or change whatever to make it entrepreneurial.
Many graduates leave university without the practical skills demanded by the workplace. They are also rarely taught how to become employers.
You can't really expect to be hired if there's really no one who's going to be doing the hiring. So it is a good start. That is something that is very necessary, you know, teaching young people to be entrepreneurs, to be able to start their own businesses.
For many young South Africans, a first job is more than a milestone. It is a gateway to independence in a country still scarred by deep inequality. Yet, half of the country's youth remain locked out of the labour market. There is growing hope, however, that the right skills and training could start to turn the tide in a crisis that falls heaviest on young people. Julie Shara, CGTN, Cape Town.
On to the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. Coffee producers, traders and government officials from across the continent are there to promote African coffee on a global stage. One of the key discussions during the third African Fine Coffee Conference and Exhibition is Africa's expanding trade ties with China. It's now one of the fastest growing markets for coffee grown on the continent. CGTN's Crystal Onkeo reports.
The week-long conference, which closed on Friday, united stakeholders from the coffee value chain, including farmers, exporters and international buyers, to discuss critical issues such as quality, sustainability and market access. This is as China's consumption of African coffee is rapidly increasing due to urban lifestyles and a burgeoning cafe culture. As the continent's largest coffee producer, Ethiopia's exports to China soared from over 16,000 tons in the last 5 months compared to 12,000 tons over the same period the previous year.
China has recently become one of the largest importers of Ethiopian coffee and the second largest buyer from Africa. It is now competing strongly with European markets and is expected to become one of the leading destinations for Ethiopian coffee. Chinese companies have quickly moved into the top ranks of importers in Ethiopia, and several Chinese investors have already obtained licenses and started operations, which is strengthening cooperation, increasing coffee trade between the two countries.
Traders say Chinese consumers are showing a preference for specialty beans, particularly Ethiopian and East African varieties, which are gaining traction in cafes and retail outlets. This exhibition has facilitated partnerships between Chinese buyers and African exporters in various areas including logistics, roasting and branding.
Last year, we have more than 400 containers from Ethiopia coffee to China to support the market in China. Because everyone knows that the China coffee industry is a bomb there. And more clients, they will pick Ethiopia coffee in their SOE, in their recipe, in their the signature drink. So more and more people fall in love with the Ethiopia coffee.
This growth is not isolated to Ethiopia. Other African nations such as Uganda are also enhancing their coffee exports to China, boosted by government-led promotion and direct market engagement.
The Chinese market is extremely important for Uganda, and actually we are very excited to have our friends from China. They are now taking our coffee. I can tell you that coffee exports to China have increased by 270% in the past 2 years. So Uganda has grown as a very big exporter of coffee to China. And we want this market to grow even further. And government support is there for them. So this is one of our key destinations. In fact, we have our office in China. It's promoting coffee.
Analysts say that the evolving Africa-China coffee trade signifies a broader economic shift towards stronger South-to-South cooperation, allowing African producers to view coffee as a strategic bridge in long-term trade partnerships. Crystal Onkeo, CGTN.
Still in East Africa, while the Kenyan government is pushing science and engineering in its school curriculum, it is falling behind in the training of robotics, largely because the resources for that sort of training are simply not available. However, that's something that a robotics enthusiast and a teacher is trying to change in northern Laikipia County. He set up special clubs to get students started in the field.
In a classroom in Laikipia County, a sparsely populated grassland region in northern Kenya known for its rhinos and cheetahs, pupils are busy snapping together wheels, motors and sensors to assemble a robot. Guiding them is 27-year-old Githinji, who runs a string of robotics clubs in the area. His trainings have taken some of his pupils far beyond the rural landscapes outside. In November, he took a team of 3 to Singapore for the Olympiad, where he also served as the competition's first Kenyan judge.
Basically, a robot is just like a human being. The way your body has senses and you have motors, also robot is like that. The robot has like 5 senses. We have the ones that we use. They have the color sensor, the gyro sensor, the ultrasonic, and they have also motors that they help them in movement. So basically a robot is just a human being that depends on a computer for instructions.
Singapore was an eye-opening experience for Githinji, who was educated in a modest rural school without access to computers.
In science, in a suitcase, we usually have like 200 students who are in our clubs, the robotics club, which is also limited by the resources that we have. So if we have more resources, we can, like, students are usually very interested in robotics and being part of this club.
The clubs in Laikipia, which reach around 200 pupils, are funded by a US non-profit Science in a Suitcase, which helped train Githinji and funded the trip to Singapore. They have inspired 14-year-old Natalie Wangari.
I would like to become a neurological surgeon, and the reason why is when I do robotics, so that means that in future when I become a neurological surgeon, it will not take me myself to do the surgery. I can build a robot machine that can act as a doctor, so I'll need just to code it and it will do the surgery itself.
Githinji previously coached a team at the African Olympiad in South Africa in 2024, where they designed agricultural robots that can operate farming tools and irrigate fields, and sees particular benefits for rural hospitals, assisting in surgeries and delivering medication.
I have learned that you can use a robot to do many things. Even you can use a robot to treat people when you are very far.
Githinji hopes robotics can provide solutions to some of Kenya's specific challenges and dreams of more support and collaborators to expand his robotics program across the country. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
I'll leave it there for the time being, but here's what's coming up at the top of the hour. Contrary to popular belief in some parts of the world, young Africans actually work more than their peers on other continents. That at least is one of the primary findings of the Africa Youth Employment Outlook report for 2026. We'll have a conversation coming up with the author of that report and lots more coming your way at the top of the hour. See you then. But for now, on to Beatrice for the sport.
Rama, thank you. Well, let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. The IOC absolves itself from any blame over American skier Lindsey Vohn's crash at the Winter Olympics. The International Olympic Committee has distanced itself from any blame regarding the injury of American skier Lindsey Vonn, saying medics were satisfied she was fit to compete. Officials said the 41-year-old's decision to take part a week after she suffered a ruptured anterior cruciate ligament in her knee had been hers.
I was able to train and made the choice with the excellent team that she has to take part. So from that point of view, I don't think we can, say that she should or shouldn't have participated. This decision was really hers and her team